My sister pushed me down the stairs while pregnant because I ruined her party. My parents threatened to disown me if I reported her, but I sent her to jail and now they're begging to meet my baby. I'm 28 years old. I work in digital marketing, and I need to tell this story because what happened to me a few months ago still keeps me up at night. And because I need someone to tell me if I did the right thing or if I'm the horrible person my parents say I am. The thing is, I always wanted to be a mom. Since I was a little girl, you know, I played with dolls and planned names for my future kids and all that stuff. I married Daniel when I was 25. He was 27, and we thought it would be easy. Like, we get married, wait a year to enjoy being a couple, and then start trying for a baby. Well, no. Turns out my body had other plans. We'd been trying for like 2 years and nothing, absolutely nothing, until I finally got pregnant and Daniel and I were so happy. I mean, we cried together when we saw those 2 lines on the test. But I lost that baby at 8 weeks. Then I got pregnant again 6 months later and lost it again, this time at 10 weeks. I don't know if you've been through something like this, but it's horrible. It's like your body betrays you over and over, and every time I saw someone with a baby bump or a stroller, I felt like someone was stabbing a knife in my chest. My family knew everything. We told them every time I got pregnant and every time I lost the baby, because we thought we needed that support. You know what I mean? But every time it happened, my mom would say things like, maybe it's because you're too stressed with work, or my sister Madison would make comments like, well, at least you don't have to deal with diapers yet, as if it were something positive. Madison is 26 years old, 2 years younger than me, and we've always had a complicated relationship. She's my parents' favorite, always has been. I think because she's more outgoing and successful in her career, she works in finance and makes a lot of money, like way more than me. When we were kids, my parents always compared everything, our grades, our activities, our achievements, and Madison always won. I got used to being second choice, the one who wasn't as bright or as interesting. And over time, I stopped trying to compete because I knew I was never going to win. But we always had a decent relationship, I guess. Or that's what I thought. We'd go out together sometimes, send each other memes, the normal stuff between sisters, though we were never super close. So, in January of this year, after spending months not actively trying because I was too emotionally devastated, it turns out I got pregnant again. I was so scared. Literally so scared that it would happen again. That Daniel and I decided not to tell anyone. Absolutely no one. Until we were sure everything was okay. 8 weeks passed and the baby was still there. Then 10 weeks. Then 12. And I kept holding my breath every time I went to the bathroom expecting to see blood. My doctor told me that after 12 weeks, the chances of losing the pregnancy dropped a lot, but I couldn't relax. I couldn't allow myself to be happy yet because I was so afraid of going through that devastation again. We reached 16 weeks and I couldn't hide the little belly so easily anymore. I wore loose clothes all the time and avoided seeing my family in person. I always made excuses that I was busy with work or that Daniel and I had plans. My mom complained that I never visited, but I kept postponing everything because I needed to protect myself emotionally, you know? I didn't want them to know and then have to tell them again that I'd lost the baby. I couldn't go through that again. I just couldn't. Daniel supported me completely. He was also scared and understood why we needed to keep it secret for now. In May, when I was like 4 months pregnant, Madison got a big promotion at her job. Like, she became a director of something important and my parents were super proud, obviously. She organized a party at her house to celebrate and invited me, and I really didn't want to go, but Daniel convinced me that we had to at least make an appearance for a bit so as not to raise suspicions. So we went, me in a loose blouse and a blazer on top, even though it was hot, trying to hide the belly that was already pretty obvious if anyone paid attention. The party was full of people. Madison's friends from work, from college, my parents, some aunts and uncles, cousins, basically the whole family. Madison was in her element, telling everyone about her new position and her responsibilities, and my parents were looking at her with those proud eyes they'd never directed at me. I was trying to go unnoticed, staying close to Daniel, drinking water while everyone else drank wine, and avoiding staying near my mom because she knows me well, and I knew that if she saw me up close, she was going to notice something weird. Then my Aunt Helen, my mom's sister, came up to me and gave me a hug, and when she hugged me, she clearly felt my belly because she pulled back and looked at me with those huge eyes like, oh my God. She grabbed my arm and took me to a corner and whispered, "You're pregnant." And I tried to deny it, but she kept insisting. "I can see it, Amanda. You have that pregnant face and you have a little belly. And I finally admitted that yes, but I begged her not to say anything, that we weren't ready to announce it yet. She promised me she wouldn't say anything, hugged me again, and told me how happy she was for me. Well, turns out my Aunt Helen can't keep a secret even if her life depended on it, because literally 10 minutes later, just when Madison was about to cut her celebration cake, my aunt stood up in the middle of the room and shouted, "I have an announcement to make," and my heart sank because I knew exactly what was going to happen. She said, "We have another reason to celebrate today. Amanda is pregnant." And everyone started clapping and congratulating me, and I wanted the earth to swallow me. Literally wanted to disappear. Daniel grabbed my hand, and I saw his panicked face because he knew this was exactly what we didn't want to happen. My mom ran to me crying and hugging me. My dad patted me on the back. Cousins who barely talked to me suddenly wanted to touch my belly, and in the middle of all that chaos, I saw Madison's face. She was standing next to her celebration cake, with the knife in her hand, and she had an expression I'll never forget. It was like pure fury mixed with something darker. And I realized in that moment that I had just ruined her day without meaning to. Things got awkward fast because all the attention that had been on Madison was suddenly on me. People were asking me how many months along I was, if I knew the baby's sex, if we had names picked out, and Madison kept standing there looking angrier and angrier. I tried to divert the attention back to her, like, "Guys, this is Madison's day. Let's talk about her amazing promotion," but the damage was already done. After like half an hour, Madison went upstairs to her room, and I knew she was upset, so I decided to go up and talk to her, to apologize, even though technically I hadn't done anything wrong. I knocked on her bedroom door, and she said, "Come in," with a super cold voice. I went in, and she was sitting on her bed with her arms crossed, looking at me with a face of hatred that surprised me. I mean, I knew she was upset, but I didn't expect that intensity. I told her, "Madison, I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to be announced like that." I literally begged Aunt Helen not to say anything, and she let out a bitter laugh and said, "Sure, Amanda, because everything always has to be about you, right?" I was confused. Like what? I don't understand. This is your day. I didn't want to steal your moment. And she stood up and started walking towards me, saying, "It's always been like this. You always need attention. You always need everyone to see you as the victim with your stupid failed pregnancies." And that hurt. I mean, it hurt so much that I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I told her, "Madison, that's horrible. How can you say something like that?" And she continued, "Now everyone's going to be obsessed with your baby, and no one's going to remember my promotion. No one's going to care that I worked 5 years to get here." I tried to calm her down. I told her that people weren't going to forget her achievement, that she was amazing and everyone was proud of her, but she kept yelling horrible things. Like she mentioned my previous miscarriages, saying, "I hope this one dies too, so you'll stop looking for pity." And I froze. I couldn't believe my sister had just said that. I told her, "You know what, Madison? Go to hell." And I turned around to leave her room, because I wasn't going to stay there listening to that. But when I got to the bedroom door that led to the hallway where the stairs were, I felt Madison's hands on my back, and she pushed me. She pushed me hard, and the next thing I remember is falling down the stairs. There weren't many steps, like 8 or 10 maybe, but I fell sideways, trying to protect my belly instinctively. And when I reached the bottom, I was on the hallway floor with horrible pain in my left wrist and absolute panic, thinking about my baby. Daniel was the first to arrive. He heard the noise and came running, and when he saw me on the floor, he went pale and yelled for someone to call an ambulance. My mom arrived next and was hysterical, asking what happened, and Madison came down the stairs crying, saying it was an accident. It was an accident. She tripped, but I knew it hadn't been an accident. She had pushed me. I felt her push me, and I told Daniel through tears. She pushed me. She pushed me on purpose. In the ambulance, I kept crying, asking the paramedics if my baby was going to be okay, and Daniel was next to me holding my hand, telling me everything was going to be fine. We got to the hospital and they did an ultrasound immediately, and thank God the baby was okay. The little heart was still beating and there were no signs of problems. My wrist was fractured and they put it in a cast, but all I cared about was that my baby was alive. My parents arrived at the hospital like an hour later with Madison, and when they entered my hospital room, Daniel stood in front of my bed like blocking them and told them to leave. My dad started saying, "Daniel, don't be ridiculous. We want to see how Amanda is." And Daniel said she doesn't want to see you, especially not Madison, after what she did. Madison started crying again with her act that it had been an accident, and my mom hugged her and looked at me like I was the bad one for accusing my sister. I told them I knew perfectly well that she had pushed me, that it had been on purpose after saying horrible things to me about my previous miscarriages, and my dad said, "Amanda, don't talk nonsense. Your sister would never do something like that. You clearly tripped, and now you're confused from the trauma." But I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what had happened, and I told them I was going to press assault charges against Madison. That's when my parents got really ugly with me. My dad said, "If you dare do that, you're going to destroy this family." And my mom added, "Amanda, if you take your sister to court, we're going to disinherit you. You won't be our daughter anymore. Do you understand?" And I was there in that hospital bed with my fractured wrist and my baby that I almost lost again because of my sister, and my parents were threatening to disown me if I sought justice. Daniel yelled at them to get out of the room before he called security, and they finally left. That night, Daniel and I talked for hours about what to do. He wanted me to press charges immediately. He said Madison had physically attacked me and endangered our baby, and we couldn't let her get away with it. I was scared of losing my family completely. But I also knew that if I did nothing, I was telling Madison she could hurt me without consequences. So, we decided to do it. We decided to press charges, even if it meant losing my parents. The next day, we went to the police, and I filed the formal complaint. I told them the whole story, showed them my fractured wrist, gave them the names of witnesses who had seen Madison go up the stairs after me right before the fall. The police went to talk to her and arrested her that same night. My parents called me like 20 times, yelling at me on the phone. My mom was crying, saying, "How can you do this to your sister? Your own blood." And my dad told me I was dead to them, not to contact them ever again. The case took like 2 months to resolve. Madison hired an expensive lawyer, obviously paid for by my parents, but there was enough evidence and testimonies from people at the party who had heard part of the argument. In the end, Madison accepted a plea deal. She was found guilty of assault. She got 2 years probation, has to go to mandatory anger management therapy, and has to pay all my medical bills from the hospital. We also got a restraining order that says she can't approach me or contact me for anything. 5 months passed without talking to my parents or Madison, 5 months where I blocked their numbers, their social media, everything. It was hard. I'm not going to lie. There were days where I missed my mom horribly and wanted to call her and tell her how the pregnancy was going. But Daniel reminded me what they had said, how they had threatened me and chosen to defend Madison instead of protecting me. His family was incredible during that time. His mom came every week to see how I was, accompanied me to medical appointments when Daniel couldn't, and never made me feel like I was alone, even though technically I had lost my whole family. The baby kept growing perfectly despite everything. Every ultrasound showed he was healthy and strong, and when October arrived, I could finally relax a bit and start getting really excited. We decided not to know the baby's sex until he was born, because after everything we'd been through, we wanted that surprise. On October 15th at 3:47 inches the morning our son was born, a beautiful and healthy boy weighing 7 pounds who cried loudly as soon as he came out, and who has Daniel's eyes and my nose. We named him Thomas, and when I held him for the first time, I cried more than I've cried in my life, but this time from happiness and relief. We were in the hospital for 3 days and everything was perfect. Thomas ate well, slept well. The doctors said he was completely healthy. Daniel practically didn't sleep because he spent all his time watching him and taking pictures of him. He was the proudest dad in the world. On the 3rd day, we were discharged and arrived home, ready to start our life as a family of 3. 2 days later, in the afternoon, we were at home. I was breastfeeding Thomas in the living room, and Daniel was in the kitchen preparing dinner. When there was a knock on the door, Daniel went to open it, and I heard his voice change completely. Like he got super serious and said, "What are you doing here?" I couldn't see who it was from where I was sitting, but I had a bad feeling. Then I heard my mom's voice saying, "Daniel, please, we just want to meet our grandson." And my dad added, "We have the right to see the baby." Daniel said, "No, you don't have any right after everything you did," and told them to leave. My dad started raising his voice, saying it was ridiculous, that months had passed and it was time to leave the drama behind, and my mom was crying, saying, "Please, Amanda, I'm your mother, let me see my grandson." But I stayed sitting on that couch with Thomas in my arms and didn't say anything, because I knew that if I let them in, I was going to start a cycle of toxicity that I didn't want for my son. Daniel told them that if they didn't leave, he was going to call the police and get another restraining order, this time against them. My dad said we were making a huge mistake, that we were going to regret keeping Thomas away from his family, but Daniel closed the door in their faces and locked it. He came to where I was and sat next to me, both of us looking at Thomas, who kept eating without realizing all the drama surrounding him, and Daniel told me we did the right thing, and I nodded even though part of me felt terrible. It's been 3 weeks since Thomas was born, and my parents have tried to contact us like 5 more times, always with the same message that they want to meet the baby, that family is important, that we should forgive and forget. But they've never acknowledged what Madison did. They've never apologized for threatening to disinherit me. They've never admitted that they chose to defend the person who hurt me instead of supporting me. And until that happens, if it ever happens, they're not going to be part of Thomas's life. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh, if I should give them a chance to be grandparents. But then I look at my son and think about everything I went through to have him here. The losses, the constant fear during the pregnancy, the fall down the stairs, and I know that my job now is to protect him. Daniel says we're building our own family, one without toxicity or people who excuse violence. And I guess he's right. It's not the family I imagined when I was a little girl planning my future, but it's the family we have. And for now, that's enough.